Welcome to My Morning Cup, a podcast produced by Costa Media Advisors and presented by Rockpoint Bank and EPB. Rockpoint Bank, from Chattanooga for Chattanooga. And EPB, get EPB's fiber optics for the world's fastest community-wide internet. I'm Mike Costa, your host. My guest this week is Kip Henley. Kip is a well-known local champion golfer and professional caddy. Kip, before I get you to explain to our listeners what is the most important golf club in a bag, let me ask, what's in your morning cup?
What's in my morning cup?
Yeah, what do you...
I'm excited to be here with you, little buddy, and talk to a fellow Chattanoogan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell a few stories.
How do you start your morning, though? I see you got a large Weigel's Dr. Pepper. Is that your poison?
Right now, yeah, I drink 1 million Diet Cokes, and that's my go-to. This is Diet Dr. Pepper, but I drink tons of them. That's
no coffee?
Right now, no, I can stand coffee, but I only like girly man coffee. It's got to have a lot of cream and sugar in it, iced coffee. I don't like tough guy coffee.
You a pumpkin spice guy?
I will do a pumpkin spice before I'll do a black coffee.
Well, I appreciate you coming in and doing this. I think I first became aware of you not just from golf circles, knowing your background as a golfer and then also caddying on the PGA Tour, but on Twitter. You're a pretty active Twitter guy.
Pretty active, yes, sir.
And you've got a good following there too. But as I was telling you, I want to talk about your career journey, your life. You're born here in Chattanooga, huh?
Yes, sir. Born and raised. I moved away into Crossville in '83. Yeah.
Where'd you grow up around here, though?
I'm a 58 highway kid, but it's more where it turns into Bonnie Oaks down further, almost towards the Dodge Avenue. I was East Chattanooga, too.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of my childhood in East Chattanooga at the recreation center down there. And that's where my father grew up. So we lived close to that and spent tons of time there. But I went to Central High School, straight up 58 highway. Yeah.
So were you playing golf at Central?
I did as just a kind of by accident, really. I can remember, I'll just tell a quick story. Dad put us in all sports, growing up. And then when I was like 13, he had taken me to the golf course at Brainerd and Concord when I was like 4 and 5 years old to pull his pull cart. So I was introduced to the game as a young kid, and I get to hit a shot here and there with him playing with his buddies.
And what a great time to spend with your dad, too.
Oh, my God. I mean, if I had it on film, it would be the greatest thing ever, And I would pull it usually for 9 holes, and then sometimes he would just leave me in I can remember Concord at that time was 18 holes, and no, it was only a 9-hole golf course. And then he would just leave me in the old brick. It was a cinder block building clubhouse, that Concord was it. I can remember it having a stove in the middle, and there was some form of a snack bar there. This is 64, 65. And so I would pull him for 9 holes, pull his cart and get tired, and he'd give me $1, and I'd just go to the clubhouse and sit by the fire and eat brownies and sandwiches.
A different time.
Way different time. But I would get to occasionally hit a shot. So that's how I was introduced to the game. But when I was 13, he joined Creeks Bend as a member, our family membership. I can remember our dues was $37 a month for the entire. We had a swimming pool, and we would play golf all day and fish and ball hawk. And that was my introduction to the game. So I started playing a little bit. And I was an athlete, so I got pretty good at the game reasonably fast. And one day I was playing at Brainerd on my own, and I got paired with a couple of boys that they're a little older than me. And we got to talking, and they said, "Hey, we play golf at Central. Where do you go to school?" I go, "Well, I'm a freshman at Central." And they go, "Yeah, you should try and come out for the golf team." I said, "You think I could make the golf team?" They go, "You have a chance to make the golf team." And that was Mike and Kenny Bales. And they entered, they didn't introduce me to the game, but they said, "Hey, Kip, you need to try it." And I went out and made the golf team. And I can remember those memories of my freshman year, some of my greatest memories, riding around town and
I bet,
and playing golf with. And then I stayed 4 years, at Central.
And you've got siblings too, right?
I got an older sister, Suzette, older brother, Lindy, then me, the deprived middle child, and then you have my little brother, Brent, who's a hell of a player in his own right, and then I have a baby sister, Dion.
So a large family.
The Henley Five, I have absolutely American apple pie family, just a great blessing.
Well, talk about a little bit about that growing up in East Chattanooga, 5 of y'all. Just what'd y'all do for fun and interact?
We were not inside.
Yeah.
Never inside. Mom was do anything to get us out of the house, and we just played outside. We would ride our bikes everywhere. I'd ride my bikes across the dam. I'd ride my bike everywhere downtown and anywhere. It just went everywhere. And, we had to be back, when the street lights came on, and we always had a nice dinner prepared for us by our mom. And we were blessed with two beautiful parents. My father traveled, but he was gone a lot, but I swear he never missed a ball game. He never missed a golf match. He never missed a basketball. He never missed a thing. And we were just blessed family.
What did he do for a living?
He worked for Calgon for the most of his life, and then he sold he worked for Gates Rubber Company, like selling fan belts and stuff. He hustled around, and then Mom, she worked for the county. She drove her own bus around for special needs kids back in the day. And we used to have a station wagon. She'd put a school bus sign, the suction on the top of it, and we would ride with her and pick up all the special needs kids, and around some of them were kind of wild. It was a lot of great times, a lot of unbelievable memories.
Besides when getting into golf, what other sports did you play?
I mean, if it wasn't on ice, I pretty much played it. You know, no, when I was a kid, no one played soccer except the rich kids, the private schools. There was no public school soccer. I remember always wanting to play soccer with my buddies and could never get a game going, but there was no organized high school soccer except at Baylor and McCallie and GPS. No one else had soccer in those days.
So you're growing up in East Chattanooga, you're close with your siblings, you're doing stuff, and you've got just idyllic world there. Were you doing any part-time jobs through high school?
Well, in high school, once I got old enough to drive around stuff, then I started taking, doing jobs. And I can remember one of my first jobs was at Kingston Pencil Company, which is right down from Creeks Bend. That's how I think the owner was one of the members there, Valley Brook or something, gave me a job there in the summer. And I remember I called myself a pencil dipper. And what I did, I stick like 100 pencils in this almost like a styrofoam thing upside down with a eraser in that. It'd be like 100 of them. Then I'd turn it over and stick it in this vat. I was in this big room about the size of this office, and it had a big vat of lacquer. And then I'd stick it on this thing, and then I'd lower those pencils down in that lacquer. I'd sit there and smell lacquer all day. I'd go home with the biggest headache. And then lift 1,000-pound boxes over my head. It was actual manual labor. I didn't like it much.
Yeah, with the experience as a pencil dipper, you could probably go to the Maker's Mark distillery in Kentucky and dip the bottles into the red wax.
And then obviously Mr. Templeton, Ira Templeton, and Buddy Templeton, they gave me jobs working around the golf course at Creeks Bend. I did that. And Russell Mitz at Rivermont, the old Rivermont. Uh-huh. So many great memories from the past Chattanooga golf. And Mr. Mitz would give us a job cutting Poan out of the greens and things like that. So,
well, and you mentioned the two guys you met playing golf, saying, hey, you ought to go out for the golf team at Central. Walk me through that. Did you just show up and say, hey, I want to go out for the golf team?
I just got paired with them by chance. I just went out to play golf on my own at Brainerd, and I got paired with these two young guys. And, they were way better than me at the game, but they encouraged me, say, hey, Kip, you got the talent to maybe make the team. So I went and tried out and made the team. We weren't that strong, so I was like the third or fourth man there. And then they graduated, and I moved up to captain in no time. Like my sophomore year, I was the captain of the golf team.
When did you get the bug?
What actually gave me the bug, Mike, is I remember this. I started playing my fair share of golf, and enjoyed it. And I remember my parents and some of their friends, we got in a car and drove down to the Atlanta Classic. I'll never forget this. And Jack Nicklaus was playing in the Atlanta Classic. I'd never seen a golf tournament, didn't watch it on television, didn't think much of it, but I'd heard of Jack Nicklaus.
Which course was that at?
Atlanta Country Club. I can remember the old beautiful dogleg left par 5, 18. It was just magical to me. But anyway, so we're in the car and we're driving down and they're talking about Jack Nicklaus, and I know Jack Nicklaus. So I'm going to find Jack Nicklaus when I get there. I'm old enough to run around by myself. So as soon as we get out and I go through the gate, I take off and just leave them sitting in the dirt. And I go running. I can remember, I think it was 4T when I first found Jack. And it was a par 5. I remember it was a par 5 elevated, way elevated. You drove it down the hill and you're looking out into the clouds and there's a dogleg right down at the bottom. I don't remember what hole it was, 3, 4, 5, somewhere like that. I go pushing through the people, and I've got my back to Jack Nicklaus. I push all the way up to the ropes. I'm 8, 10 feet from my hero, that my newfound hero. And I'll never forget this. He's standing there, and as I look through him, Angelo Argea, his caddy, the famous, guy with a
very distinct looking.
Oh, yeah.
Distinctive look.
Big old hair, had a fro hair.
Salt and pepper,
super
big
tight,
mustache.
yeah, with gold necklace.
Yeah.
He looks through Jack and notices me, and I guess he does like I do when I'm caddying on the PGA Tour. I try and really make Kids Day special if I get the chance, I know it's about the players, but, I'll give them a ball or speak to them when I'm, not bothering anybody. And he looked through Jack straight in my eye, and he kind of winked at me and nodded his head. And I looked around. He's looking at me. Cool. So anyway, Jack, I'll never forget this. Jack's standing over that tee ball, staring out there, and it's a hot summer day. And there's storms kind of brewing. And I'm looking at my hero, and he looks like he's 20 foot tall. And he's standing over that ball, and he looks out into the distance. He sees there's a black cloud. And he backs off, and Jack Nicklaus in his Jack Nicklaus voice goes, "Ain't very pretty today out here, is it?" I'll never forget those words. And I go, that voice just came out of that giant of a man. It was really a nasally kind of wah voice. And I thought, that's weird. But a couple holes later, I ran ahead of the dog leg and sat there as another dog leg. And Angelo was caddying, like a lot of I do sometimes. The fat, lazy caddies will get out ahead of their guy and get a little break, And he comes and sets his bag down right beside me. I'm standing there all by myself at the dog leg. And so we got like 3 or 4 minutes to sit there. And he talked to me about, I can't remember what he talked to me about, but boy, it made me feel.
Really left an impression.
And that day I said, this is what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a tour player. I'm going to win Masters and everything. I was 14 years old.
I was just getting ready to ask you when you decided that that's what you wanted to pursue.
That day.
Was there anything else in your life, whether it's business or some other kind of career, that you ever considered?
I never paid attention to business. A huge fault in my, as I look back, my really immature part of my life was, but I knew that day forward, I played basketball. I wasted a lot of hours in hoops. I pursued hoops as fully as I could outside of the golf season. I mean, I lifted weights. I wore ankle weights. We did everything and worked on dribble drills. And I played basketball through, my senior year in high school. But then I was pretty smart, a 5'8" white kid that can't shoot very good. On top of that, I could jump and that pass and dribble. Yeah, golfer really started to make more and more sense as I went along. But I didn't have a backup plan, Mike, because I knew in my heart I would be a tour player. I knew there was no way I would fail at that. I knew that someday I would have 5 green jackets in my closet. I knew 100%. There was when I went to UTC on a golf scholarship and was given just a golden opportunity laid on my table, I just let it slip by. I didn't study. I was just there. This was just a stepping stone to me becoming a famous tour player someday.
So you're in high school. You're on the golf team. You're moving up to the number 1 player on the team. You've got that long-term goal. What are you doing in high school other than outside of the golf team in terms of preparing for that? Are you practicing on your own? I mean, today, today all these kids have personal coaches and things like that, and that was different in your day.
Definitely, they get better faster than we did with the equipment and the training and the knowledge of teachers nowadays. You just don't see quirky golf swings coming along anymore. I mean, 1 in 1,000.
No Jim Furyk's.
Used to be 1 in 10 or 2 in 10 were quirky. They found a way to, but I did it through pure hard work. If any of these kids now with the dedication, with the knowledge and the psychologists in their corner and things like that we didn't have, if they would put in the hours that I put in and a few of my buddies put in, they would be Tiger Woods. These guys would be Tiger Woods because I know they didn't work as hard. I did everything I could to get better. All the bleeding hands, all the range balls for hours and hours and hours and picking them up and hitting them again. And,
what would be a typical day, like whether it's the summer or school, in terms of how you're preparing yourself?
I can remember one of my part-time jobs was working for a Charlie Nichols out at Eastgate Driving Range after Mr. Tilton had sold it and he'd taken it over. And I got to work out there and pick up range balls and do a little bit of mowing for him. And then I had access to the golf course. I play anytime I want to. And that's when the the dike came through down that area to prevent flooding, and it came through part of the golf course. And so they eliminated 9 holes of that Eastgate par 3. It became a 9-hole golf, but there was still 1 or 2 holes over in the corner that weren't usable because of the routing. And I would take my shag bag that's full of, probably 200 balls, go sit on the tee and sit there and just whack all day. I hit this 5-iron, 7-irons, 9-irons at a par 3 green, a perfect target for me all by myself. Go whack and hit them as close to that flag as I could because I was the one that had to pick them up and go around, scoop them up, go back to the tee and unload it again and do it over and over and over. So, tons of but I didn't have a teacher per se. I had Mike Nelms, who recently passed, my golf hero, who taught me so much about the game. I had him to occasionally help me here and there, but I didn't have cameras. I didn't have a set teacher. I sure didn't have a sports psychologist, and all the things that the kids have now. They develop fast now.
Yeah, and just talking about hitting range balls, I don't think a lot of the younger golfers are familiar with a shag bag.
Yeah, shag bag, yeah. I still have mine.
Yeah, where you've got your own balls and you're going and picking them up after you hit them.
Exactly. At UTC, our golf course was Rivermont, the old, the Mitts family owned and ran, and they were great to the UTC golfers. And that had their driving range. There was no range balls there ever. You had to hit your own shag bag, and it was just a little tough little bag, probably a foot wide and a foot and a half tall, and it'd be full of 200 golf balls, all your old balls or whatever you found around, and it was dear to you if you were in the game in those days. And we'd park our car down on the driving range and turn on the radio and just try and pile those balls up with the best of our ability, because if you sprayed them around, you had to go walk. It'd take you forever, yeah. And then you would just walk around with your sand wedge and hold the handle and just pop them into your bag. And boy, your forearms would get just wore out and tired, from popping 200 balls. It'd get heavy, and you'd finish it and take it and start over again.
So you're playing at Central, and comes around time for college. Did you consider any other colleges, or was it because UTC offered you?
I wanted to play at UT so bad.
Did you?
But I wasn't. I came to the game pretty late compared to what, Yeah. Even then, golfers, I didn't do a junior program until I was 14 years old, maybe 13 and a half, before I did any kind of programs. And kids were just better than me when I started. I had guys at Creeks being kids, at my age or a tad bit younger. They were better than me like crazy because they had been playing the junior tournaments and stuff around, and I was new to it. But I passed by them fast through being an athlete and outworking them. But I wanted to play for UT so bad, but I just wasn't good enough. My junior career wasn't good, and I didn't start to really, really get pretty good until my senior year in high school, before I started to get to where I could beat people consistently and win tournaments. And so Mike Malarkey was the golf coach at UT, didn't even give me a breath of a look, didn't even consider me. So I won the city prep my senior year, and that was, the best tournament you could win in the city. And Coach Reed Sanderlin, who was in his second year at UT Chattanooga at the time. Reed. Yep. He took notice of me, and I guess he had a lot of scholarship money at that time at some point, because he signed like 6 of us. It seems like there was even more, but it was Ricky Eberle and Jesse Simmons, I think, signed the same time I did. Gary Weller, Brian Heath from Knoxville, Keith Fisher was 1 year behind me, but we have a picture of us sitting in a golf cart at Valley Brook with Coach Sanderlin, and there's 6 of us. We all signed full scholarships. I don't know how Reed figured that out or hustled that money up or whatever he did. I think I had to buy my books, and that was it. So,
how important are those junior tournaments to a kid learning how to compete and win?
So important now, because these college coaches, they've got their players. If you come across a kid now, it's a senior in high school, and he starts dominating, a senior in high school, and you're helping him, all of a sudden this kid starts to be dominant. He hasn't been, but now, man, this kid's turned into a bomber. He hits it straight and get it up. He's shooting crazy numbers. He's incredible. You contact any of these college coaches around, they don't even want to. They've got their guy picked out from the 8th grade or 7th grade that they've They don't even want to pay attention to this kid anymore. So junior programs and getting your kid after it early is so important now because these coaches have their team locked up for 2 or 3 years, these guys do. I'm sure if somebody came along dominant enough, and they would find a way somehow. But
for a great part, you got to be on the radar at a very young age.
Nowadays, you got this Blades Brown kid out of Nashville.
I saw that. He was
mind-boggling.
Yeah, wasn't he tied with Scotty Scheffler at some point? Yeah, that wasn't a tour.
Played in the last group. Yeah, it's a full tour event. It was
but it wasn't at Torrey Pines. It was the one before.
No, it was I think it was the Bob Hope.
Yeah,
or whatever they call it now. I think it was the Bob Hope. He played in the last round with Scotty Scheffler and everything.
It's like 18 out of Nashville, is it?
Yeah, he's 18 years old out of Nashville. And this kid's been groomed, with coaches and you hear him interviewed. Holy cow. I said, I seen his interview and I posted it on Twitter. I go, this kid's lied on his birth certificate. This kid is 34 years old. When I was 18, goodness, I was trying to find chicks and, and playing golf, and I was an idiot. This kid is groomed. He says the right things, and he knows the psychology of the game. It's insane.
So for a kid like that, why would you even consider college? Why wouldn't you just start?
Well, that's exactly what he did. He bounced. But now I would, colleges, they're getting paid to play now. It's amazing. So the world's definitely changed.
Born too early.
I don't think I would have been good enough to get much of what's that, IA money or whatever they call it.
NIL money?
I don't think Coach Sandler would give me $200,000 to play on the golf team if it were 2026 with my career.
Maybe not. You never know. In terms of when you got to UTC, you've got the tour as your goal. Are you just so focused on golf that you're not doing anything else in college, or?
I was focused on having fun,
right? Which a lot of us are at that age.
And I was focused on golf. The schoolwork was 15th on my radars. Yeah. And the only thing that made schoolwork, it was just I think I would be the poster child for ADD now. There was no such thing in those days, but paying attention was brutal for me. And I could pay attention for short spurts, but I just couldn't sit there for 25 minutes and listen to a monotone guy. I can remember being in trouble with my grades and knowing my scholarship's on the line and going, and Coach Sandler saying, Kip, you got to figure this out, dude, or you're going to lose your scholarship. And I can remember getting fired up, and I can remember one day going, okay, I am going to sit in the front row, and I'm going to history. I'm going to listen to this guy. And I can remember sitting there on the front row, looking at him. He's standing there. I remember he was a bald-headed guy with puffy gray hair on the side and a vest. And he's talking to me, and he's going, and I'm sitting there for about 5 minutes, and I go, I start designing my own golf course. Yeah. I did a lot of
all you hear is the Charlie Brown adults.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't do it, and I would say, "Okay, Kip, stop, focus." And I would give him 20 seconds, and man, my mind would go right out to what's the tee look like at Rivermont at 1:00.
So how frustrating is that to you as a 18, 19, 20-year-old that you got to focus, but you can't?
I absolutely could not focus, and I thought, today, I'm going to go in there and learn. Yeah. I'm going to make at least a C in this so I can keep my scholarship, and I couldn't do it. And I would get up in the morning, leave my house. The kids, we had 5 kids that were pretty reasonably close in age. So my mom's she was working, Dad was working, so they weren't cracking the whip standing over me. They let me try and be a man, and I just wasn't. And I would get up in the morning, 6:00, take a shower, go down to the student center and start shooting the shit with all the other athletes on the couch, and never set foot in the class. I would do it all day. Yeah. I'd sit around and we'd go play ping pong. We'd wait until all the other guys that were on the golf team that were actually going to class would get out, and then we'd go to Rivermont or we'd go to play at the country club or whatever we got to play at the time.
And I'm just thinking of this because golf, you've got to be almost hyper-focused.
You do. And think about it, Mike. 15 seconds.
Right.
You got 15 seconds of hyper-focus. Then you got, 5 minutes where you can talk about what
because you're strolling down the fairway.
Yeah, you're talking to your buddy and relaxing, and you want to be talking about other things and relaxing in between shots. You can't focus for 4.5 hours. Impossible.
So talk a little bit about your career at UTC, how the team did, how you did, and where you saw it going.
We were never better than mediocre, and I hit stretches in my career. Even though I was working hard and playing, I hit stretches where, I just wasn't very consistent. And looking back, it was mostly mental in my game. And I had studied the game as hard as I could. I studied every player and what they did, and I studied the best teachers and how they taught. And just for selfish reasons, for my game, I wanted to know what they were doing so I could get better. And so I was flighty around in my practice. I didn't have a set practice routine. I would just go some days and practice for 8 hours by myself. And then the next day, I'd just play. And then the next day I'd go hit 10 balls and hit it so good I'd want to go play. I was flighty. My brain was flighty. And I learned as I got older, I had to, even now in my real life of being ADD, I know I still am, I have to have certain things, even though I'm all over the place, I have certain things that I can't not do. Like I have to know where I put my keys when I go home because I'll lose them,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm an intelligent guy, part of my brain, not book-wise, but in my brain I have a great memory for stories and things like that, and things that are important to me really stick with me.
If you were doing it today, going through the same experience today, what would you do different in your practice routine? Because you're talking about you just weren't consistent with it. Would you have a regimen?
I would have a regimen. I would have drills that I did, and things like that. And I would just be, and I would find a way to somehow find a way to pass my classes because I'm paying for it now. I'm a 65-year-old man between bags caddying. I'm going to get started here again soon. But I'm not retired, but I'm a guy who has nothing. I haven't built anything in my life. I've done good at everything I did, but I didn't prepare along the way because I just felt like it would be taken care of, and it's a life lesson. I don't know if you could have told me when I was that age that I wasn't going to be the best player in the world.
Because you got to believe you're going to be the best player if you're ever going to even have a shot to be the best player. That's the first step in it.
And it's so frustrating when, and that's when I get to heaven someday. That's the first thing I say, hey, God, why'd you leave this part out? What hole did I step in that kept me from doing this?
Yeah.
And once I started caddying on the PGA Tour full time, I learned, that's where my brain got in the way. It wasn't my golf game.
It was. Who was it? Ben Hogan said that golf is played between 4 inches between ear to ear, something like that.
Exactly.
Because it's all in the head. But you had success. Like UTC, you won the Tennessee State Open.
Yeah.
Talk about how you decided to go pro and what came next.
So I won our state open out of sheer hard work. I hadn't played that many golf tournaments other than high school and college events at the time. Like I never even played in our state amateur. I played in one state am before the state open that I won. I went to Memphis and played in that one. Lou Emig tried to win that thing when he was like 68 years old. He was in the last group that year at Colonial, an amazing man.
Colonial in Memphis?
One of my heroes.
Oh, and that was a long course.
Oh, it's a long, hard. In the days of Persimmon and Bellata, it was a bear of a golf course.
Yeah.
And it played incredibly hard that time. Brad Weaver, the golf pro's son, won that.
Yeah, he went to my high school.
Did he? Brad Weaver did?
Yeah, sure did. He was a year behind me.
What an amazing kid that guy.
Oh, he was fabulous.
Wow, so you're a Memphis boy.
Memphis boy.
Cool.
I actually caddied one summer out at Colonial, which that's when every member had a tour bag.
Oh, yeah.
And they double bagged us in the Memphis heat and humidity.
Those old straps that just cut you to the bone. They were about an inch wide, man. Just cut your shoulder to the blood.
And these guys had, they didn't lock the house when they left because they put everything they owned in their freaking golf bag.
Yeah.
It's the heaviest golf bag I ever.
Tons of balls. And you couldn't tell them to take them out or anything like the caddies now. They have the power. They'll just go through your bag and pull your stuff out.
No, you toted it all. And then, the Danny Thomas Memphis Classic was held there, and I carried a score sign a couple of times, and
Amazing.
best time for that was I got Lee Trevino once, and that was a great group.
That had to be a great day.
It was a great day. Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Lee, he's great at the talking, man. He's the best.
I remember the weekend. It was a Kentucky Derby weekend.
Yeah,
and that's all he talked about was the race. When's that horse going to go?
Wow.
Yeah, it was a good time. But this is not down memory lane for Mike Costa.
Well, we crossed paths there at Colonial. It was amazing. But Lou Emming trying to win that state am, amazing.
Yeah.
But getting back to the state open. I would, if it would have been in Nashville, I would have never gone. If it had been in Knoxville, I probably wouldn't have gone either. But it was at Valley Brook, right across the street from Creeks Bend, where I grew up. And I knew Valley Brook a little bit, not great, but I knew it a little bit in college and 1 or 2 rounds in high school.
Very tight course.
Yeah, tight dog legs everywhere. But that's where the rich kids lived. We were at Creeks Bend. Our dues were $37 a month. Their dues might have been $80 a month at Valley Brook. We called those the rich kids across the street. But so the state open was held there, and through sheer hard work, and I found my game that week. And
how old were you?
It was 19. I would have been 22 years of age. I'd already flunked out of UTC again. This was the summertime. I'd already flunked out for the last time. Mm-hmm. I flunked out 3 times at UTC and petitioned to get back in. They let me back in. I got part of my scholarship back, and I was just too immature and dumb to pass class, and just lost it for the 3rd time. Mm-hmm. And but school wasn't important. I was going to win masters. But anyway, so I won the state open at Valley Brook. I beat Bob Walcott in a playoff, and the 9s were reversed in those days. So 10 was the dogleg left. And anyway, I can remember 3 was the hard dogleg right. It's 12 now, the impossible dogleg. I played that hole. I tripled it the first round. I doubled it the second round, and I bogeyed it in the final round. I played that hole 6 over for 3 days and still shot like, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 under, something like that for 3 days, despite that one hole. But I ended up playing Bob Walcott in a playoff. And when we got done, they go, okay, we're going to start the playoff on number 10 because they'd already turned the sprinklers on for 1. So we started on the dogleg left there, and I can remember it was a back pin, and I hit it. We both drove it out there well, but Bob hit it as a really back pin. If anybody, the old timers will remember that green hard back to front slope. And the back middle pin, and Bob hit it 20 feet pin high left, maybe 25. And I knew, man, he's in trouble. He's going to have a hard 2-putt. You know? I know that if you hit that putt, you got to hit it way and just let it trip. So
he wasn't a Chattanooga guy, so he didn't know the course.
No, he was the golden child of Tennessee golf. He's tall, good-looking guy. I'm a little blonde-headed kid with my shirt tail out, and no one knows me except the local guys. I had a fair amount of the members at Creeks Bend and Valley Brook following me around. But everybody was pulling for Bob Walcott that didn't know my name. And he hit it pin high, and I made sure and kept it under that hole. And sure enough, he putted. I remember he left it like 8 feet short. And so I hit my 20-footer and drug it up the hill. It was about 2 feet straight under the hole. And I knew I had the advantage. He could make, but he missed it. And I can remember standing over that putt, Mike, and not being able to feel my feet, feel my hands. My hands were shaking. I don't know how to this day that I made that putt, but I crammed it right in there and won the state open. And then this is so that was in the summer. That fall, tour school was coming to Valley Brook. That's when Rob Landon ran Valley Brook, and he was big about big tournaments and stuff and hosting stuff. So, and
winning that tournament's got to reinforce your goal of, I'm going to have 5 green jackets. I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I'm right on path to getting these masters, that I'm going to win someday and be a tour player. And so that was the stars lined up. Oh, this is perfect. Tour school's coming here. In those days, it was 2 stages. You only had to get through the first stage to get to the finals. And I go, well, the first stage is coming to where I just beat the best players, all the pros and all the amateurs in Tennessee are coming. I haven't lost a golf tournament that summer. I mean, I was on fire playing. I was making 8 birdies every time I played a round of golf. I just got really good. I putted like a demon and worked hard and hit it far and hit it straight and chipped and wedged it like crazy. So the stars were just lining up for me to breeze right through Q school and get my tour card and start my life on the BJ Tour.
So what happened? Did you breeze right there?
No. I made the worst. I don't want to make it too long of a story, but I made the worst decision in God, when I ask God that question, he'll probably say, remember, Kip, when you went to Dublin, Ohio? So Gibby Gilbert helped me with my money. Was one of my big golf heroes. Gibby was so incredible. He gave me some of my startup money, to try and play for a living. He said, under one condition, you go see Jack Grout for a golf lesson. And I said, that guy taught Nicklaus.
And that's Dublin, Ohio.
In Dublin, Ohio, at Muirfield Village. And I said, sign me up.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, this is the greatest teacher on the face of the earth. He's another stepping stone to me being a tour player. I'll never forget that. I mean, it's a long, long story, but I went to Muirfield Village, and there's some great, it's a 20-minute story. I can't tell it, but to get to there that day, I'll never forget it, and driving up on the driving range and him parking he pulled his cart right in the middle, jumped over the curb, parked it right in the middle of the driving, the perfect grass at Muirfield Village. And he was an old man by this time. This is not the summer of 82. Yeah. It was late summer of 82. And Q School's 3 months away at Valley Brook, where I just swamped everybody. So I can never forget that day. He was an old man with bispectacle glass and had his pants pulled up just under his boobs and had a bucket hat on. And he was a big man. And he called me Skip. But anyway, so he parks on the driving range and he says, take that bucket of balls right there. And I'll never forget this too. I took a practice swing. He says, hit me some 5-irons with that pin out there, Kip. And I remember, I can see that yellow pin in my eye to this day, Mike. And he said, just start hitting me some 5-irons and that. And I rolling balls over and I start hitting these 5-irons. And I am peppering this flag, just wearing this flag out. And I'm thinking to myself, he's never seen Jack tear that flag out of the hole with that yardage, I promise. I'm flagging this 5-iron. I'll never forget it. This is as good as I can hit it. And he said these words to me. And I'd had a car wreck getting there. That's part of the long story. And I was bandaged up. But nothing on my golf swing could keep me from hitting balls, It was just, I had stitches in my arm and forehead. But anyway, that's another part of the long story. But he says these words to me that I'll never forget. He goes, Kip, is that the way you always swing? Are you hurt? And I said, yeah, this is the way I swing. And he goes, you're not hurt or anything? I go, well, it stings, I had stitches all in my forearm and in my forehead. I said, it doesn't bother. This is the way I'm swinging. This is the way I swing. And he goes, man, oh man. He goes, I don't know. I don't think you're ready to turn pro. I said, Mr. Grout, I've already turned pro. I've sent my Q School in. And he goes, I just don't think, I said, I just won our state open. I said, I haven't lost a golf tournament in the last 10. I've won every one of them. I'm dominating Tennessee golf now, really dominating Chattanooga golf. I'm playing Q School in 3 months. He goes, I don't think you're ready. I don't think you should turn pro. I said, it's too late. I've already sent my, it's stricter rules in those days. Once I sent that letter to the USGA, said my intent. Yeah. I'm no more amateur golf. And man, I spent 2 hours with him on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and I left that practice tee with my tail between my legs thinking, oh my God, I got to change everything that I've ever done in the golf game. And I can remember the golf swing guys, if anybody pays attention to this, the teachers, they will know what he said to me. But the most important thing he said to me that sent me into a tailspin, he talked about the flatness of my left wrist at the top. I cupped it, like Couples does, and like 40 other great tour players have done in their career. Hogan wanted to cup it, but he couldn't because that's the way God made his wrist set at the top. And I always think that right there, that's in your DNA, your wrist set. And you start messing with a guy's left wrist position, that changes everything. The way the face comes down, shut or a little more open. And I played a cut at the time. And I killed it in those days. I was a far hitter. And I tried to stop cupping it and try and get my right hand under the grip at the top and play what the normal teachers would call more square these days. But it was way more shut than I'd ever played in my life. And all that, I couldn't land it in a 20-acre field.
And it gets in your head.
More than anything, if he'd have said, Kip, we need to make these changes, but my God, let's make these tiny changes. Yeah. You just won your state open and you're winning everything you play in. And the tour school's coming to where he said, Kip, if I had a teacher that would have been smart and go, Kip, oh my God, you're going to breathe. You're going to dominate that thing. You're going to dominate Q School. If I'd had somebody just to blow a little bit of smoke up my rear end that day,
Yeah.
It would have made the difference in the world because I spent my life worrying about what people thought of me.
Do you think that golf coaches, golf teachers now aren't as strict on the swing? And what I mean by that I'm going to rebuild you. Do they work with you more now with whatever your quirks of your swing may be? Can they recognize, wow, why would we rebuild this if he's winning?
Mike, that's the thing about teaching now. It goes from 0 to 500 miles an hour teaching as far as that question you're talking about. There's some brilliant teachers that say, don't mess with that. And then there's some brilliant teachers that have had good results. They get the right attitude on a kid. They get the guy who's detail-oriented and is willing to experiment and make changes. And then the other teachers, if that kid that goes to this super instructional teacher would have gone and seen the natural guy, he wouldn't have prospered.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
pot luck on what teacher you signed up for.
Yeah.
Like I signed up with the greatest teacher on the face of the earth, and he destroyed my confidence.
Yeah.
Just destroyed it.
Well, and he probably carried a heck of a lot of weight. He's the greatest teacher on earth,
And he
he's
thinks
telling me
I
I'm
suck.
doing it wrong.
Yeah, he thinks I'm no good at the game.
Yeah.
It destroyed me.
So what happened with Q School?
I almost made it through, and I think I missed by 2, maybe 3 shots, and I'm telling you, I couldn't land it in a 20-acre field. I was just putting and chipping like a demon, like I could, and something we didn't mess with. All you did is mess with I stand on talking about the driver yips. I was hitting it everywhere at Valley Brook. And I almost made it through on just sheer guts and putting and chipping and pitching and wedging. But my driver, I couldn't. I was awful.
So you don't make it through Q School on that try. What's plan B?
Then I got to go to work. I don't have enough money. I don't have to go to work yet. I had enough money raised through Gibby, and Gibby's heart was in the perfect place when he did what he did for me. He said, another thing about that, I raised $7,000 to play on, and Gibby gave me $1,000, which was $1 million in 1982. And it wasn't $1 million, but it was a lot of money for a kid that had nothing. So I took what money I had left over from the Q School and stuff, and headed straight to the mini tours. You know, it was called the Goosey's Tour. What was it called? J.C. Goosey, who's a Knoxville legend, ran it down in Orlando, around the Orlando area. It was the Goosey's Tour. That doesn't sound right, but that's what it was. I went down and played with a lot of those greats that, if you're old enough, that went through there. 1 million great players went through there, that tour. And I went from putting on the perfect bent grass of Chattanooga, and especially Creeks Bend. All I grew up was on 12 perfect bent. You know, if they weren't airified, they were 12, 13 on the stem, perfect bent grass. I went down there to oversee the Bermuda that was a 6 on the stem, and I couldn't knock it in from 1.5 foot. And I ran through that money like crap. I couldn't compete.
Yeah.
I was still hitting it crooked, so I can remember just looking for balls on every hole and not being able to gain back the strokes with my putter like I could at home. So, they beat me to death. Then I came home broke, had to go to work, and that's when I turned to the club pro business. But it was only a small stepping stone for, I'm going to figure this out, but I got to have a job.
Yeah.
And that's how I turned to being a club professional.
And where'd you go?
Lake Tansy.
Up in Crossville?
Up in Crossville, Tennessee. I used to go up there and play in the Diamond Gym tournament. My father had a great dear friend in Quineth Roberts that lived up there, and we used to go visit all the time. And I was buddies with the head professional. And my father said, "Hey, Kip, Lake Tansy's looking for I was working with Gary Haskew, the radio host.
Yep.
He was selling cars, and he let me wash cars. And
Dr. Basketball.
Dr. Basketball, Gary Haskew, one of my dear friends in life. And he would let me play in tournaments and take off whenever I wanted to. So it was the perfect job, but I wasn't making money, period. So Dad said, "Hey, Kip, I think Lake Tansy's looking for an assistant pro. You ought to go up and talk to Aubrey." So I called Aubrey. I drive up there on Wednesday to Lake Tansy, walk in, I interview with Aubrey. I go home, I get my stuff, I move to Crossville Thursday. I go to the pro shop Friday. And I was an assistant pro at Tansy for 2 years. Then I tried to play again and failed. After 2 years there, I raised some money. I was beating everybody in Tennessee golf again. Kip, go try again. And then run through that money, and then became an assistant pro. Came back with my tail between my legs again from getting beat in Florida. Go to the Fairfield Glade and become an assistant pro, and leave there after about a year and a half, go back down to Florida again after raising up some money again. I'd made a hole-in-one that was worth $10,000 in Nashville. That gave me some money. So I take it back down to Florida, get my brains beat in again, come back to get my assistant pro job back in Fairfield Glade, and then get the head pro job in '88 at Heatherhurst, and stayed there until 2000.
Yeah.
I'm a 40-year-old guy, started smacking everybody around in Tennessee golf again, just dominating again, got money from tournaments, take it back. I go to play the Hooters Tour, get my brains beat in, and come back and broke again.
Don't take this the wrong way, but it's almost like the guy in the casino who keeps on going back to the ATM and going, I'm going to double down on this thing. I
doubled down 20 times.
Yeah.
And I tell anybody to listen, any tour player, I go, listen, I don't care. You made it. I didn't make it. I said, but no human on earth tried harder with less success than me. A lot of people look at my career and go, Kip, oh my God, what an amazing career you had. And I can just look at that as a failure. That's all I can look at my career. Well, I'm proud of the things, but
you only look at that because you didn't get your $5,000 jackets. I mean, it's successful in so many other ways. I mean, here comes reality television, and golf has the Big Break show.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about winning the Big Break 2.
Big Break 2. Yeah. A lot of people have heard the story, but Big Break 1 exploded on the Golf Channel for all the golf nuts. And I started paying attention about halfway through. And then they said, hey, they're going to have a Big Break 2. And then Big Break 1 won a start on the Canadian Tour. The guy won that. And then they said, okay, whoever wins Big Break 2 will get 4 starts on the Nationwide, which is the Korn Ferry now, And I had already dominated Tennessee golf and qualified through the club pro ranks. The fat guy way in always said I'd played in probably 20, 25 nationwide events at this time. I'd played in Knoxville and Chattanooga and a few around the country too that I qualified through the club pro ranks, and they even made it into a tour event. Memphis, I played in that probably 6 times before the Big Break had come around, qualifying through the club pro ranks. So I go, they're not going to let me be on this because I've already done those things. Whoever wins Big Break 2 gets those 4 starts. They won't give them to me because I've already done all that. I've not been successful at it, but I've played in them, I made a few cuts here and there, but so my wife wanted me to do it so bad, my wife, who's taught me into everything good in my life, she says, Kip, you got to do it. I said, I won't do it. I won't fill it out. They won't choose me. In the deadline day, she said, you got to fill it out. So I can remember filling out the questionnaire and just trying to make it as funny as possible and faxed it in on the deadline day. And then through another 30-minute story, I ended up getting an audition for it. And out of I tell you, it's 200 people out of Myrtle Beach where I went, 200 in Texas, 200 in California, 200 in Michigan, and 200 in Canada that were chosen out of millions of guys that applied. Those, 200 here and there, it's like 1,000 guys auditioned for the show. I drove to Myrtle Beach with my wife and my 2 beautiful daughters. They were like 10 and 11 at the time, maybe 11 and 12. I'm a 44-year-old kind of overweight club professional. When I got my hair dyed dead white, why I was doing that at the time, I have no idea. But I stood out from a lot of the great-looking guys in the golf swings. And I hit 10 shots and interviewed on camera for 2 minutes, minute and a half. And they just asked me a handful of questions. And we got in the car and drove back to Crossville. I go, what a waste of time that was. Yeah. And then I got a call probably 3 weeks later and said, I'm being considered, and they're sending a camera crew to Crossville. And when they told me that, I go, oh, that's a good sign.
So they're looking for not just talent, but personality. Someone that's going to be able to draw the viewers in.
Right.
So what was that experience like for you?
The Big Break?
Yeah.
It was the greatest experience of my golf life, really and truly. I mean, I got tournaments that were harder to win, and I'm more proud. But the 11 days I spent in Vegas, I got chosen, and there was 10 of us, and we went out to Vegas for 11 days, and I got treated like a king for 11 days, and I won the Big Break too.
And with it, the nationwide starts.
When the nationwide starts. And a point to that is, as a club professional in Tennessee golf, I'd won our section championship the year before the Big Break. So the winner of the section got in the FedEx St. Jude, the old Danny Thomas, and the 2 nationwide events in Tennessee. So I had that and the 2 in Tennessee that weren't part of my 4. So I knew after the big break, I had 6 starts on the nationwide and a start on the tour event.
That's pretty
I had
good.
a golden opportunity.
Yeah.
And if I would have been good enough, or if I would have, my game was good enough, but my mind wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And I had the greatest opportunity a guy's ever had from the big break to make it.
And if you would, just go through where that took you and how you eventually end up as a professional caddy.
By the time the big break rolls around, my little brother Brent, who was a heck of a player and stumbled into caddying by accident, he went to work for Garrett. I went to caddy for Garrett Willis at the finals of Q School one year. I guess that would have been 99 or 2000 Q School. I can't remember which one it was. I guess it would have been 2000 Q School. And I flunked out in the first stage, and Garrett asked me to work the finals, which I did, and he went through it and got his tour card. And we just had a terrible time. I wanted to kill Garrett Willis, and because he's just angry on the golf course and mean to me. But anyway, he asked me to caddy. I go, no way, I'm not doing it. I'm still going to be a player. And he said, you think Brent will caddy? And Brent wasn't making much money as a club professional at the time. He went to work for Garrett, and they won Garrett Willis won their first start that year was Tucson. And Brent was caddying for Garrett, and Garrett won the only tour event of his whole career. His very first time he sat in a tour event, he won it.
And so your brother won his first time.
My little brother won like $67,000 his first, and he was making like $8,000 a year. And Brent won like $67,000 in 1 week. It was the greatest thing that ever happened to our family. And so Brent takes off from there, and he gets fired from Garrett 3 or 4 tournaments later, which is insane, but it happened. But Garrett's a hard guy to work for. But then Brent bounced around here and there, and then he picked up Woody Austin at the end of the season. And Woody had to go back to Q School, and Brent went right with Q School with him. And Woody that year, Woody Austin birdied 16, 17, and 18 to get his tour card by 1. It's the gutsiest performance I've ever seen. And then from that time forward, Brent was Woody, and he spent 10 years with Woody Austin. And Woody's Austin, he had been Rookie of the Year, but he had fallen off and lost it when Brent signed back on.
Because Woody had a bit of volatile temper on the course, too.
Huge. He really and truly, he's the most misunderstood guy in the history of the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful human being. But a lot of the tour players don't like Woody. Because he doesn't have a filter when he speaks. He says he shoots straight from the hip. And he's a little bit of a social misfit, but he really and truly is one of the nicest men to ever play the game of golf. He does all kind of philanthropy work that no one finds out about. Only his family knows, and his dearest, closest friends get to find out. Yeah. He doesn't tell us so. He doesn't say, I'm doing this. But I know he did a zillion things for people.
That means his heart's in it.
His heart's in it.
Yeah.
Woody's a great, but anyway, Brent spent 10 years with Woody, killing it. And then he started to taper off, and then he stumbled right onto Robert Garrigus. And Robert Garrigus was one of the greatest paying, if not the greatest paying player of all time. And Brent spent 10 years with him, and they rock and rolled for a long time. And so Brent spent 20 years out there and retired. But he had been doing it 4 or 5 years when I'd flunked after my big break starts and just running out of money again. I thought, well, maybe I can, and I started caddying.
So who'd you start with?
I caddied part-time for like 3 events for Jason Bone, but that's when I was still trying to be a player, just to try and make some money, temporary money. And then when I'd given up and I was beat again for the last time, I was 45, 44 years old after the big break starts and flunked at all that. Then I signed on to with Eric Axley to be a professional tour caddy, the boy from Knoxville. And I spent 6 or 7 events with him, and man, we were trending up, doing great. But his card wasn't locked up for the following season, and we'd played some practice rounds with Brian Gay.
Yeah.
His bag came open, and I asked to switch over, and he gave it to me, and I quit Axe. So I quit Axe in Reno, Mike. The following week, the tour was off, so I caddied for Axe at Reno. I was done. I was going over to Brian Gay. I was happy as a pig in slop. It was a week off. Then the next tournament was San Antonio, and Brian Gay wasn't playing San Antonio, so I was at home practicing, playing, sitting on the couch. Guess who wins San Antonio?
Not a chance.
Yeah. Eric Axley wins his only win in the history of his tour. He wins the fall. Of course, I would have probably screwed him up, I guess. He wouldn't have won, but he won. So I watched like 75,000 fly out my window at the time, broke as I can be.
So does that have a similar effect on you, like Jack Grout? All of a sudden, you made a decision to go with another guy, and the guy you were with all that time.
Yeah, my wife wanted to choke me at the time, sissy. But but I was never smart enough to think, oh my God, this is a sign, or I'm not smart enough, or I just thought, well, that's just a crazy coincidence in my career. And it turns out it was just a kind of a crazy coincidence. Who knows what it would have done if I'd stuck with Axe. Yeah. Maybe we would have taken off and he'd have been, I don't know. There's no way to know the other side of the story. But I signed on with Brian Gay, and we had...
And you were with him a while.
Yeah, almost 10 years. Yeah. We had one or two little breakups in there over money, but a great career with Brian Gay. Brian Gay won. I won 4 times with Brian.
Yeah. What does the average golf fan not know about professional caddies or professional caddying?
There's nothing I see more often on my Twitter feed. And the most reoccurring negative comment I get is anyone can do your job. And really, they have a point to a point. To a point, they have a point. If your guy's playing great and he's on top and say, Tiger Woods wanted a caddy for a week, and Joe Blow, this idiot that can't break 80 that sends me these tweets, and he went and caddied for Tiger that week, even if it was the Masters, there's a chance Tiger would have won the Masters anyway that week.
Despite his caddy.
Despite his caddy doing nothing but carrying the bag and setting it down and saying all the wrong things and stuff. Players can be what we call F-up proof, which you can figure out. They can get playing so good you can't screw them up. Yes, those days people can do my job. But going from one player to a next player as a tour caddy and understanding what makes this guy tick. When you sign on and you play a 9-hole practice round with the first time you hang out with these tour players, you figure it out. You being smart enough to read what's in his golf brain. How does he tick? That's what makes the best caddies of all. It ain't reading greens. It ain't coming up with yardages. A monkey can get yardages. Yeah. If you can do any math, you can do my job as far as getting yardages. And there might be some decent, 80 shooters that read greens really well. There's not many, but there's a few. They could do my job, that part. But there's not that many people, I feel like, that read a human as quickly as I do, that understand what comes in their head. How am I? Am I an aggressive caddy or am I a pulled back caddy? Does this guy want tons of information? Does he want it delivered this way? How I lay in the hotel room at night thinking, how can I get in my guy's head without him knowing I'm trying to get in his head?
So you're figuring him out from a mental standpoint and really just managing the player more than the conditions and everything else around it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, when you're in the heat of the battle and you're coming down 18 and the ball's sitting on hard pan and he hits his 7-iron 165 normal off of soft turf, and he's sitting on hard pan and he's got it downwind and he's got it, 165 to carry that bunker, and you're sitting on hard pan, golf knowledge is going to kick in. The 80 shooter can't do what I'm going to do in that not just me, but the best golfers, the high golf IQ guys know that 7-iron ain't going to fly 165 if he nails it off that hard dirt. It's going to fly 68, 70 with no wind factored in whatsoever. I'm going to put him on an 8-iron. The yardage he can only hit his 7-iron out of the middle of the fairway. But now he's on the dirt. He just needs 3 more yards to cover that edge and I'm going to destroy the 80 shooter. He can't do my job.
Yeah.
He can't do my job on 18 when he can't even spit. He's nervous as crap and he's got to figure out the math,
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to get to this before we run out of time, and I've really got 2 more questions for you. One I wanted to cover real quick. Talk a little bit about dedicating so much of your life to a caddy as being a caddy. But the tour really doesn't provide much for you, do they, in terms of...
When I signed on, it was ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And before I got there, it was slave work before I got there, and the pay. The pay wasn't that great. There were vagabonds, and there was a lot of, bad characters that followed the tour in the old days. And a lot of the old-time players, Nicklaus and Palmer, despised caddies. Yeah. They just didn't like... They were a motley crew. because there was no money in it, and they had to scramble, and and drunk guys kept bags, and they would just bounce to that guy because he'd fire him.
And it was city to city, wasn't it? A lot of times they were going with whoever was local. A
lot of local guys, but you had the vagabonds that followed the tour, and they would drive coast to coast, and 3 and 4 guys in a car driving coast to coast in 2 days, or one day to get you had to go from like the Bob Hope to somewhere in South Florida.
Whew.
3 or 4 guys would do it nonstop, just drive and sleep and drive and sleep. And sleep, 5 and 6 to a hotel room, just trying to. So there was a lot of unsavory characters back in the day. So caddies weren't treated that well. But when I started to caddy on tour, it was beginning to change. And I can remember asking one of the old great caddies who caddied for Davis Thomas for so long when I was out there, maybe a half a year or so. And I remember talking to Scotty Nizer. And I said, in the caddy dining area we had, it was the old trailer that followed the tour. And I remember looking at Scotty. I go, Scotty, how long you been caddying? He goes, I'm working on 20 years now, Kip. And I knew my situation. I knew I wasn't getting any retirement. I knew I didn't have insurance. I wasn't getting paid by anybody but my player. The tour didn't give me a nickel. They gave me 1,000 rules to go by and controlled whether if I could even work. They could fire me. But they weren't my boss. And I go, Scotty, you've been doing it for 20 years. What do you got to show for it? You've been carrying a sign on your back for 20 years. A caddy vest, with the
logos on it
on television.
Yeah.
Every Sunday and
walking
Saturday.
billboard.
I said, "What do you got?" I don't have any. And I go, "Why is that okay in your brain? Why is that fair?" Obviously, David Thomas has paid you handsomely, but the tour controls and tells you 1,000 rules and makes you eat your dinner under a shade tree or in a hot tent. Your lunch. They give you a hot dog in the cart barn. That's where Nicklaus kept us, in the cart barn at Muirfield Village. He had 4 clubhouses that were massive. The caddies were in a cart barn downstairs. It was 100 degrees, and we got a fan blowing on us, trying to keep us. And we're eating hot dogs and maybe a sandwich occasionally.
Yeah.
But now that Mike, the treatment's gotten way better. The tour's starting to realize. But there's not a bunch of vagabonds out there. In fact, I was one of the last vagabond. There's intelligent cats out there doing it these days.
Yeah, it's more of a profession.
Yeah, it's good money in it. So
can be if you get lucky.
You get the right guy.
Yeah, get the right guy.
Exactly.
Before I get to the last question, I want to remind our listeners who makes my morning cup possible. It's a big thank you to our presenting sponsors, EPB and Rockpoint Bank. EPB, get EPB fiber optics for the world's fastest community-wide internet. And Rockpoint Bank, your local banking partner, your business, your bank, your future. All right, Kip, last one. You've had absolutely an interesting career in life. And you talked a little bit about how you didn't focus on things like business and you wish you had, but really what you've done is really parallels a lot of people's business careers. You're meeting people, you're making connections, you're trying things. Things work out, things don't work out. But with all that in consideration, what would you tell yourself at 25 is important for a happy life?
Good question, because I've never not had a happy life, Mike.
Good answer.
I mean, I just haven't. I mean, I've been removed from death, and my parents are gone, my grandparents are gone, but it was just the circle of life, and it went on. I've been healthy siblings and healthy family, and I mean, even though I'm as broke as I've ever been since I was 22 years old, right now I'm as broke as I've ever been. But I'm fixing to start caddying again on the senior tour, and I'm going to find me a regular bag after this guy takes off, and I'm going back to the regular tour at 60. I'm an idiot. But I choose to look at the sunny side of life. Always on the sunny side for Kipper.
I don't think that's an idiot. I think that's a fresh attitude or refreshing attitude.
I guess if I were smart and I looked at I would be a sad, depressed individual, I think. But the way I look at life, it keeps me a happy-go-lucky kind of guy, and
Well, and then I mentioned to you, I follow you on Twitter, and that's how we kind of got to know each other. I don't see you as a looking back guy. I mean, you're always looking at the horizon.
I do. I still look at the horizon. I'm in the gym now trying to lose weight, to try and get healthy, and I'm going to keep going, and I hope a couple of these kids that I'm teaching, and I've helped around, they get their card and they see that I'm still viable help for them, and they pick me up and we take off, and I start doing it again. But I don't know what the way I look. It's just the way I look at. I'm a happy guy, and even though I consider my golf career a bit of a failure, if I look, that's why I don't look back. I guess because I look.
Well, it depends on how you define it. If you define it with 5 green jackets, well, who besides Tiger is not a failure?
Right. But there's, all but 1% would swap golf careers with Uncle Kip.
Absolutely,
dedicated players.
Well, I enjoyed learning more about it, Kip. I really appreciate you coming in. I know we've tried to hook up over the last bit, and I'm glad we finally did.
Me too.
And it's good to be with you.
Pleasure being with you, buddy.
Thanks for listening to My Morning Cup, a podcast by Costa Media Advisors. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. I release a new episode each week, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.